Hi fam, and welcome to another episode of LatinaGeek. So since the previous video that I made for this was so terrible, I'm going to do it again. I am going to do a Draw My Life. My 80th video sort of came and went, and I didn't do anything special for it, and I meant to. So I'm going to do that this time around. I want to talk about how I got here and the process of which how this channel even came to be. So let's just jump right into it. I was born June 11th, 1987 at 23. I believe that's 11:23. Somewhere around here in Hollywood, California. Because of this, my grandma said I'd be a big old movie star, and that honestly has yet to happen. Whew. I spent 10 wonderful years of my childhood in California. Now, this felt like, honestly, the land of eternal summer. I was a skinny little kid, long flippy arms, and I had my little brother. We call him Twinkie, but his actual name is Manny, and he's autistic. He's very, very near and dear to my heart. We had a dog named Senia, a cat named Weddle, which is supposed to be like a slang for, I think, American or white person. My mom and my dad. My mom at the time was a dental assistant, and my dad, sorry mom, my dad is a chef. That's his little tote blanche. So yeah, I spent 10 amazing years there, and then we found out that because we needed better health care for my little brother, that we were going to be moving to Washington. Washington, according to my dad, had snow during Christmas and rain. This is my attempt at a Christmas tree. I can't draw right now, apparently, which is pretty awful because that's what I try to do for a living. Anyhow, so when I found out that we'd be moving, I thought we'd be moving to a big old enormous house. But it didn't occur to me that I had to say goodbye to my friends. I had my very best friend Crystal, who lived literally just across the street from us in an equally big house with a really sweet pit bull. I still miss that house to this day. We said our goodbyes, and I never really saw her again. But I guess that's a story for another time. So we did it. We trucked it all the way from California, boop, 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 through Oregon, up to Washington. And the trip I will remember just for the rest of my life, because we went through these really windy hills. We packed my dad's enormous van. I remember this van because it was literally like a bed on wheels. My brother and I slept in the back most of the time, listening to Pat Benatar and Metallica and my dad's favorite Ozzy Osbourne. And I would just think of all the amazing things we would do, because in the summers in California, we constantly go camping. So I thought, like, well, we're going to be near the woods and stuff. This is just going to be equally as awesome. And I was 10, going on 11. I started public school for the very first time, and that was so cool. I was able to wear jeans to school. I'd gone to private schools all my life. I was able to create and learn about science, and I mean, our school was very big on learning about Washington, but also what made up the pH in our waters and how to keep the fishes happy and alive. So, if anything, my school promoted critical thinking, science, curiosity, and most importantly, reading. I remember the scholastic days were some of my favorite. And when I wasn't doing that, I mean, I would sit on the swing sets and I would play. But the school was very different. The first day that I was in school, my teacher was trying to make me feel comfortable by teaching me and the class about Washington, our baseball players, and though I wasn't that into sports, as well as the history of Washington, which was very rich, and I guess never got super into it when I was in private school because we were just so focused on, Jesus. But I distinctly remember my very first day of school, a kid asking me if I was Mexican or not. And to be honest, I'd never really thought about it. Everybody back at home, back in California, they were all different colors, mostly black and brown. So Spanish was just a natural part of my life, and being around just all sorts of people, black, white, Asian, and brown, wasn't unusual as it was here. So from there, finally, when I was 14, we moved into Old Blue. This big, well, not big. It was a 2-bedroom house in Federal Way, but this beautiful blue house. And most importantly, we lived just across the street from a park that had swing sets and a slide, and it was where all the kids in the neighborhood would go to commiserate, and I had my very own pack of friends where we would ride our bikes and pretend we were wolves, because I guess that's just what kids did back in the day. We didn't have cell phones or anything, so we just run around the woods picking berries and generally being little misfits. So anyhow, 14 was an awesome age because of this awesome little network you might know about, Cartoon Network. Now, I want a disclaimer saying that I had known about Sailor Moon when I was 9 in the morning. When I was 9, they would play in the morning, and I'd learn all about Sailor Moon, and I'd get up to watch it because I loved it. But nothing catapulted me quite into anime like Cartoon Network. Yeah, DBZ. And this just sprung my curiosity into drawing. I would draw all the time. When I wasn't gaming, when I wasn't running outside with my friends, I was drawing manga. And it was such an exciting time because I had my own little group of friends that loved it just as much as I did. 15 was a harder time. My father had gone and come back from the army, and my parents' marriage started to fall apart. My mom didn't really care for being home by herself. She did work. She worked quite a bit, and my grandma was with us at the time too, to watch over the house and work herself. So I was at home alone a lot. So I was in charge of looking over my then 10-year-old, my 13-year-old brother. And my parents quickly decided to split. It was a hard time for me, and a funny thing, this is what sort of catapulted me, a little thing called the internet. Now, I know this might sound like a Lifetime movie, but if anything, the chat rooms really helped me cope with being alone all the time. When I wasn't drawing, I was just chatting with other people on the internet, learning a little bit more about myself, but most importantly, learning about fanfiction, and that other people loved anime just as much as I did. Now don't worry, I never did anything dangerous with it, but I think it would be a disservice to say that it didn't help me cope with some of the darkest times of my life, especially with music videos and Strong Bad. What a cheat. That's a really bad interpretation, but whatever. Eventually, after my parents divorced, things started to calm down, and my dad remarried to my stepmom. But that happiness didn't really last. My stepmom wasn't a big fan of me, and because of this, as soon as I graduated high school, I was then kicked out of my parents' home. And this was hard. This is a hard time just because, well, it was the only home I'd really ever known. So I packed up my bags and I moved from one side of the country to the other. I moved to Pennsylvania to live with my aunt. My aunt has been my cheerleader literally all my life. She's helped raise me. Very, very important woman in my life. And luckily, too, I had a very supportive boyfriend. He was great and helped me get through a very, very, very dark period in my life. And I can't thank him enough. We're not together anymore, but he really was a huge part in all of that. So while I was living in Pennsylvania, I got my very first job at Quiznos, the very shady guy. I wasn't really happy though. I was isolated from all of my friends, and one night I got an email from them saying that they no longer wanted to be friends with me because I didn't keep up with them. This was devastating. This is devastating because it was cowardly, and it was hard to read that something that was out of my control was something that I was also being punished for. But, you learn to forgive. And if anything, it set me on the course to realize what makes friends. Pennsylvania sadly didn't work out for me. As much as I love my boyfriend and my aunt, I needed to go back home to figure things out. And from my poor aunt, living with a very young adult was proving to be a little bit too much. So I moved back in with my grandma, who was happy to see me, and slept on her couch. I ate a big old slice of humble pie and went back to work. So these formative years of my life were definitely reckless. I was 15, and in Washington State you could start going to underage clubs. And don't worry, it's not as dark as it sounds. I used to just love getting dolled up and going dancing. And that's really all that I did. We couldn't really get access to anything. But the idea of basically being somebody else for the night was super fun. I danced, I mingled, and this kind of honestly helped my self-esteem. Because when 2 a.m. struck, I just went home and went to sleep. But just like everything, I did this a little too much. And one night I came home and I went straight to sleep. But when I woke up, I realized that my grandma wasn't in her bed. So I was worried. I gave her a call, only to find out the night before she had a stroke. And it was terrible because I wasn't home. I wasn't there to help her. I was out partying. And this isn't a cautionary tale about partying. It's more so that I was neglecting my own duties in life. I was sort of ignoring all the responsibilities that I should have been taking on. Well, luckily, she's okay. But if anything, it sort of made me realize that I had to find out what the hell I was going to do with my life. So I went searching online, and after some bouts with doing a really terrible job at community college, I discovered the Art Institute of Seattle. Now, I know this is a little controversial, especially for for-profit schools, but I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't say that this was some of the best times of my life. I loved doing art every single day. And so I decided to enroll myself. I believe it was 2007 when I started. I remember the very first day of class. I sat on one of the awkward horse benches with my new pencils. And I had to draw this lady who was, naked right in front of me, because that's what you do in figure drawing class. And our teachers would poke fun of us for not drawing the whole body. Which, young me was still a little shy about. Mind you, like I said, I went to mostly private Catholic schools. So this was a new adventure in my life. I did eventually graduate in 2013. Took a little longer, and that's okay, because I kept fucking up along the way. I wasn't the greatest student. I wasn't the most inspiring or the best artist. But I went there for me. And if anything, by the time that I got out, I still had no idea what the fuck I was going to do. I blew it a couple of times. I had some art tests I didn't even complete or turn in. But sort of, that's the point. That's the whole point. Is that you have this time to figure that out. So, eventually I found myself in QA. And for a lot of us, that's a way to get in and understand the mechanics of game development. Now, mind you, before then, I took a lot of odd jobs during college. I was a security guard for Amazon. I was a barista again. At one point, I even had 2 jobs and was trying to do school. But if anything that I remember the most is that for a good 2 years, I just didn't really go out or do much. I focused in on my school and I got that degree, which to this day is something that I'm still very proud of. My Bachelor in Fine Arts. I don't care what anybody says, I love that degree. And I think I'm making the most of it. So from there, as I was getting into QA, I started to go to networking events. I had a really nice business card on some nice paper. And I got to know a lot of the other women in the dev community. And even just in January 2017, I created and completed the very first game with another group of 7, I believe, amazing individuals. You might have seen me play it. I was very, very proud of it. So from there, I created this channel. I don't remember who suggested it, but in all honesty, I wasn't going to do it. I was afraid. I think we all know that the internet can be kind of cruel. So sometimes it could be amazing and funny, and other times it can sort of be there to tear you down. And I wasn't really there for that. But that's where I ended up here. I'm working at Oculus now as QA, working my way up, and making videos still. My journey doesn't really end here. I think it's a pretty happy ending. And maybe along the way I'll find somebody and have lots of sex and babies. Yeah, buddy. But until then, that's sort of how I got here and some of the things that happened. And I'm super happy where I've been. Oh, not to mention I've had 2 art showcases, 1 completed game, among many, several art testants, and now 2 panels at Geek Girl Con that I haven't even talked about, but we'll get to that later. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm here now, and there are so many amazing things along the way. I'm 30 now. And I kind of feel like my life's still just starting. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like what you see, subscribe, share with your pals. And I'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye-bye.